Welcome everyone. So today we are going to have a very high level kind of introduction to a very important concept relating to C and C++, and obviously it's related to Python as well. But since the examples are shown here are for C and C++, so that's why we're going to focus on structure and class concept relating to C and C++ programming languages in this particular session. Okay, so let's get started. So depending on how we are progressing in the course, we can go in the following details when we are talking about structures, okay, and the functions within the structures and how to initialize the structures, how we can do array of structures and structures within structures. But let's get an introduction on structures and classes, and also to understand how these two terms are related to each other. So just to let you know that before classes, structures were the first introduction which happened in C language, as long as my experience goes. So we were basically using structures for our programming or requirements in relation to programming or system design and development. So to understand that what a structure is, it's very simple, and the simplicity is that it's a data type. Like for example here, we are defining a data type date of type, we call it as a struct means structure in C, and within that date data type, which is structure, we have multiple data types within it. So a structure contains multiple data types, and that's how C introduced structures in the early 90s or late 80s. Another important thing I think I did mention before as well, that the examples which I show in my lecture slides like this one not necessarily has to be within main. You can define it either outside in one of the header files, but this particular format, and for some of the Linux variations, to avoid errors and this and that, works pretty good. So that's why the structure is defined within the main. Okay. So this is with the way to define the structure, and as I mentioned, multiple data types within it, and this is a pictorial look of structure a date. And since we are defining another variable today of type structure, so this particular line means that today is a structure of type date. So that's what it is. And here's a pictorial look of today, and within that you have variables month, dot day, dot year. Means to access these variables from within today as a structure, you do today dot month, today dot day, today dot year. And as you can see here, today dot month, to update the value 9 here, today dot day is 25 and year is 2004, and that's how the respective memory locations get updated in a structured data type. Okay, so I encourage all of you to basically run this program, and by typing it, that's how you build your skills relating to programming, any programming language you want to learn on. It's very important to have good typing skills. Okay, and in this example, after defining the structure and a variable today and initializing it, the respective variables to the values, we are simply printing the month, the day, and year for today's structure. And that's the simplest example that what a structure is. Now, uh, the question goes, then what is different between structures and classes? In simple words, uh, you can see that it's basically a rebranding of the word structure. Okay, so that's how I see it. So structures are rebranded with the word class, and most of the time it's primarily the same features or enhanced feature you find in the keyword class compared to structures. They are not exactly the same, but in simple programming terminologies, you can think these two data terms as kind of class has been rebranded from structures. Okay, so and I highly encourage students with programming passion to implement the program shown here in C++ and in Python. The Python is again, it's simple. It's not the same format. You can just simply find an example at W3C schools, or just Google it and you will find the equivalent example how to implement in Python this particular example shown here. Okay, so let's carry on. So so when we talk about structures and classes, so very important to understand that we are talking basically about object-oriented programming. Okay, so 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 why object-oriented? Because that's what most of the things are out there in nature. That's how we conceive it. So most of in nature we have classes, and I'll further elaborate on that as I go in this lecture. So it means, for example, we as a human, we can think ourselves in programming term as a class. Okay. Similarly, let's say we have mountains. So mountains, we can think that as a class, and so on and so forth. So, and from those classes, we basically, in programming terms, we form instances, and those instances we name as objects. Okay, so relating to, again, as relating to classes, or in other words objects, there these are the four main principles of object-oriented programming. Just to give you an easy and high-level introduction to, as I said, what we are discussing in this lecture, structures or classes. So the first main concept is encapsulation, then abstraction, then inheritance, and polymorphism. Okay, so as I reiterated numerous times in my lectures, that whenever a word doesn't make sense to you, please look into the quality site like dictionary, Google it, and find the meaning of that word, and within the word meaning, you will find a lot of kind of clarity of that particular concept. So encapsulation means when an object only exposes the selected information, that it's basically encapsulated. It's within a shell. It's bound within a shell, and it's restricted within a shell, and it cannot be accessed outside that shell, and that's what it means by encapsulation. Abstraction is basically hiding the complex details to the user. Okay, so it's basically, abstraction means just user is to only concern about the high level information, not the low level details. So all the complexity hiding all the complexity to the user is basically abstraction. The one very example is that you use your cell phone all the time, or you watch TV, or you drive your cars. So you don't need to know that how the complete transmission relating to or communication relating to cell phones or TVs work. And, the only thing is the user, you need to worry about how to turn it on, the volume up and down, or how to use your cell phone to dial the numbers or receive calls. Similarly, in case of when you're driving the car, the only thing that you need to worry about is how to start the car, how to brake it, how to accelerate it, and navigate it. And you don't have to worry about the underlying details, that how that all functionalities are achieved at the very low level, in general, technical details. Okay. Inheritance, inheritance, I think it's a very simple word, that how to inherit information. That's what it means. The entities can inherit attributes from other entities, like like different species inherit. The newly born inherit different, I'll say, properties or features from their parents. So that's example. But in case of programming, and we are talking that when you make a class or a structure, so a new class or a structure, you don't just have to do it right from the scratch. You can basically inherit from whatever is already there in a class or a structure, and bring that information in a new structure or a class, and basically add on to that structure or class, is basically to avoid repeatedness of work, and be kind of efficient overall, or in bringing efficiency to our overall programming tasks. Okay, so that's what it means by inheritance. Polymorphism appears like a complex word, but poly means I think morphism means multiple forms, and poly means, I'm forgetting it, but anyhow, I think in the next slide, the exact meaning of poly and morphism is there, but it's basically a combination of two words. One is poly, the other is morphism. Okay, entities can have more than one form. So morphism means, as I said, multiple forms, and poly means more than one. That's what I think. But anyway, let's get corrected in the next slide. So important points that everyone to understand, that when we talk about object-oriented programming, we are talking about structures and classes. Most commonly nowadays is only classes, and these are the four important concepts one need to have a good understanding of when you be asked in lectures, assignments, quizzes, or in exams. Okay. So I'm going to totally, okay, well, we'll come back to it. Okay. So let's talk about encapsulation. So encapsulation, as you can see here, that this is the big circle is basically a class. Okay, that's what it shows. And within the class, a data type which is public, it means it's that particular data type is accessible to outside this particular class, outside world, as an abstracted word. But in programming terms, that this particular data type which is public is accessible to other programming tasks to the external functions. Okay. A data type which is protected, it's accessible to derived classes only. So remember this. So for example, we drive a class, let's say class D, from using this class, as we did in the date in the previous example. So in class D, from class D we can access the data types which are of type protected within this class. That's what it means by that the derived classes can access the protected data type of the parent class, which is named class here. Okay, or you can say this as class A and the derived class as class B. So class B can access class A data members which are of type protected, and that's what it means by accessible to derived classes. And the private data is the one which is only accessible from within the class. Even the derived classes or external programming features functions cannot have access to this private data. Okay, so this is called encapsulation. So basically things are encapsulated in a shell. So this is a public shell, this is a protected shell, and this is a private shell. That's what encapsulation means. So let's go to the next one and understand the concept of abstraction. And as I mentioned you here, just the high level details. You don't need to worry about, you just need to worry about how to break it or how to steer it. You don't need to understand the underlying details, so implementation detail of the car engine, cooling, braking systems are hidden from the user. The user only gets interface to interact with them. User doesn't need to know how these actually work, and that's what the meaning of abstraction is. But in programming terms, data abstraction in object-oriented programming like C++ is of these are some of the examples. That header files, the use of header files and the use of classes is basically the two types of data abstraction in C++. Okay, so let's carry on to the next slide. And this explaining the details of what is inheritance. So as you can see here, for example, you have a base class. Like here, the base class is called birds, and here's just a base class with features X and Y. And here, the base class bird has the bird's features, the common features in every bird. And again, this base class is defined to feature X and Y, which are common to whatever. Let's say for automotive or for planes or for any other kind of a class. And this is the derived class, and the derived class gets the feature X and Y, as you can see here, but it can add on another features in the to further enhance the functionality of the derived class. Okay, so that's what it is. So for example, here the base class is bird, with a common bird features which are common to most of the birds. But for eagle, as a derived class, it gets the base class, all the parameters or features defined in there, but it further adds on to the features relating to eagles in this particular derived class. So that's what it means by inheritance. So let's carry on. So let's say, so now this is what I was referring to, polymorphism. And two words, poly and morphism. Poly means many, that's what I was forgetting. So poly means many and morphism means forms. So many forms. So in programming terms, polymorphism can be runtime or compile time. Runtime is when the program is running, and compile time is when you're compiling your program after writing the code. And at compile time, operator overloading, function overloading. In this, since I'm not going to go into the but maybe I can tell you this. So when we talk about operator overloading or function overloading, there is an example I just show you, that a function with the same name, you can have multiple functions with the same name, and this is called function overloading. Why we can have same function name? And because a function can have multiple implementations, one with one parameter, one with no parameter, one with 10 parameters. but the name of the function as a programming term we want to be the same. So that's called function overloading. Operator overloading is that normally we know that plus means you adding two variables, okay? But you can give a different name to plus operator. So that's what it means by operator overloading, okay? And in a runtime we will have virtual functions. So yeah, I think that's not necessarily, because in this particular it's not in particular to the programming aspect, getting down to the details of programming. So that's why I'm not going to touch base on virtual functions, but I think this is enough to know in relation to polymorphism. But important thing to know, poly means many, morphism means forms, and the subsequent examples will further clarify that what means by that in programming terms using C++. So as you can see here, so we have one function with same name, but why it's we are not going to get errors in that because that feature is implemented. But you see here that every function, it has different number of parameters. It has no parameter, it has 1, it has 2 and 3. Even in the polymorphism, let's say you can have total sum with an int a, one parameter. Another, you can have total sum with a float as a parameter, and the compiler is going to distinguish between those two functions. So you can have you can override or have multiple function names with one parameter only, but the data type of that parameter has to be different to avoid errors and obviously the relevant desired functionality. Okay, so that's what it is, function overloading, and as an example it's expected that you understand that. Okay, so let's carry on. Now here we will further, now we're connecting the classes and structure to the nature, and as I said in the statement before, that's how the nature is out there. Every single thing out there is basically, you can think that in terms of a class, and it's a very important kind of a concept, bringing into programming, because then you can achieve a lot of desired powerful features using computers. Okay, so for example, this is here you see these are flowers, okay, and two flowers and different parts in a flower, okay, names relating to sepal, petal, pedicel, bract. This is stamen, and stamen is basically within that you have filament and anther, and different names relating to parts of a flower. So what you can do in programming, you can define it as a structure or a class. So struct for the structure, or use the word class for the class, and over here you can bring in all the different features as parameters in that particular structure or class. So see the power that we have taken something out from the nature, and you are basically categorizing it in the programming world using structures or classes, most commonly classes nowadays. So that's that's what we do. And again, you can initialize you can create an instant, or here we are just basically declaring a variable of type flower. Here we are not creating an instant, but you can create an instant and further on do kind of very powerful things in the programming world. Okay, so hopefully it makes clear sense to you, but do ask questions during lecture time, office time, send email just to get further clarity if any is required. Okay, so think of this, any object you see, anything you see out there in nature, you can basically categorize it in the form of a class. Okay, so let's carry on. And again, that's an example that we have a plant here, not a flower but a plant, and here's a tree. And as you can see here, a plant has basically it has a root or a stem and a fruit, leaf, flowers. So this you can make as your kind of a base class, I'll say, for a plant, but then you can have trees, different type of trees. Either you can make a base class of a plant and then drive different plants as a drive class, or you can have one class for the tree and drive from from the base class other classes specific to certain tree, or trees of your choice. Okay, so but you see them as that here it's you envision this as a structure or a class. This is all as a structure of the class. You can bring it with a programming word, or you can have trunk, and you can have a class of a trunk, because trunk has different parts, as you can see here. So you can define a base, a class of a trunk, and then you can have a drive class of a trunk for a particular tree or a plant, or you know. So that's how the powerful this concept classes or objects are in the programming world. Okay, so that's very important that you are very clear on these terms, structures and classes, and the four powerful aspects of the features relating to object-oriented programming. Okay, encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. Let's carry on. Go to the next slide. And again, this is your humans and internal organs. And why I'm showing you this slide, because everything what you see, you can have a human class, or you can have the class of hearts, you can have a class of kidneys, you have a class of an eye. So these are all systems, or the class for the brain. So these are all kind of nature systems, and you can bring all that knowledge in the programming world using or treating them as objects. Okay? So that is the reason of showing you this particular picture, and to further basically clarify you on the term what object-oriented programming means. Okay, so let's carry on. And this is pretty sure everyone knows, these are basically DNAs. That's how they look. Okay, different forms of a DNA I'm showing you here. And it basically, one of the questions which came into my head, that why, or how, why is DNA unique to each person? Okay, so these are some of the very important points I found. I want to share with every learner, that every DNA is unique to each person, although the DNA is composed of the same nitrogen-based molecules. So then how it's different in every human? This is because the sequence of nitrogen bases is different in every person. So that's the difference of sequencing of nitrogen bases. And more important, that is 99% of the DNA is the same in every human. But it's only 1% of that sequencing differences, which basically because of which the DNA is unique to every individual out there. Okay? So I found this as very powerful information for all of us to know that, and basically, and also it's basically complement what we're trying to learn here. Okay. And again, anyone interested, go ahead and read it about nitrogen bases, and that we are going to discuss in relation to programming terms here. But the important thing, DNA, different type of DNAs, and the uniqueness, how it comes. So, and you can have basically DNA class, and you can have DNA as a base class, and you can have DNA as a drive class for humans or for different species. Okay, let's carry on. So here, basically, what it's doing, there are some examples, structures and updating the time by 1 second. I highly, encourage, I am not going to test you that in detail relating to programming, but I am going to test you what we discussed at the basics, that what a structure is and how to access an element of a structure. That's it. But I'm not going to get into different kind of, because we are not discussing it or we are not practicing that kind of abstraction of a data type. So simplest is that if I give you a structure here and I ask you that how you will update the value, at least you should know that. So the important thing is that you type it out, try it out, and you should be okay, because I have already tested all these as function calls. Anyone with a passion, carry on with the C++ and Python as well, and version of this particular program. Array of structures, you can have, we already discussed what an array is, so similarly to that you can have array of structures. Again, just an example, try out for once with passion in programming. And you can have structures within structures, and just an example. And again, the one with passion, go ahead and try it out. I'm not going to go that deep into in this particular course relating to microprocessors and microcontrollers. Just a very high level basic introduction or basic test that you understand what a structure is. Okay? And the structure containing array is another example out there, and different structure variations done here. And dictionary is dictionary is primarily a very kind of a popular term when we talk about Python programming, but here basically it's kind of a complex example in relation to what we are doing here, so I say just skip it. But anyone with a passion, and go ahead and basically try out this program. And this is basically a binary search using a dictionary lookup. And again, the same example continued. And this is an example to convert a string into its equivalent, integer equivalents. And so this has nothing to do with structures or classes, but just an example here for anyone to know that in C, in plain C, it's that's how you convert a string into an integer. But again, I'm not going to test you on that in this particular course. Anyone with a passion, questions, reach out, office, lab time, and we can discuss on this. Okay, and these are reference from where all the slides and references were taken for this particular lecture. Thank you, and see you next time. Take care.